I'm going to turn it over to Pat and I can get arrested. All right, Pat.
This is particularly meaningful to me because Mary Jones has long been one of my real heroes. She was born in Cork, Ireland, and last year when Leroy and I were there, I discovered that some of my relatives also came from Cork. Her grandfather and her father were fighting the British rule in Ireland, and her grandfather was hung, so her father gathered up the kids and fled to the United States. She did not have an easy life. In the yellow fever epidemic of 1867, all 4 of her children and her husband died. In 1871, she had returned to Chicago and was again a very fine seamstress, and in the Chicago fire, she lost her home, her business, and everything. Her husband had been an iron worker, and she'd learned a lot about unions from him. And she decided to dedicate the rest of her life to standing up and fighting for working people, in particular, coal miners. I think the greatest honor that was ever given to her was when the United States Senate described her as the most dangerous, radical activist in the United States. I thought that was just marvelous. And I guess the other thing that I remember about reading about her is at age 93, she was still walking, talking, and organizing. So don't think I'm going to go away just right away. I got a record to keep up with, you know. This is a sad and a glad occasion. I'm glad that we have chosen to remember those who were injured and who died through no fault of their own, just trying to make a living for themselves and their family. There's nothing more devastating to a working family than losing the wage earner, the primary wage earner. And the cost to that family goes on for years and years and years. The cost to the business goes on for years and years. But people tend to just dismiss those kinds of deaths and injuries because they get a very small little blip in the news at best. And nobody ever follows up to see a year later or 2 years later or 5 years later what's happened to that family. People have tried really hard to take the funding away from OSHA. They've tried to make it a joke. They've tried everything that they can to diminish the ability of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to do their best to ensure the safety of people who are every day out working, trying to make a living. And I guess one of my favorite things that Mary Jones ever said was, "Mourn for the dead." And I noticed I always cleaned it up a little bit because what she actually said was, "Mourn for the dead and fight like hell for the living." And I would agree with that. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this lovely honor and recognition. I'm not sure I've earned it, but I thank you anyway. And I would echo Mary Jones, mourn for the dead, but fight like hell for the living, because we are the only people who will do that. Thank you so very much.